meeting is being recorded.
Hey, hey, Paula, can you hear me?
Hello. Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I can.
Good.
Good to see you.
Nice.
Sorry for the delay in getting some of those questions to you.
Sorry about your in-laws.
Yeah, really scary situation.
Oh,
Yeah,
Hello.
no one's hurt, fortunately. Hello, Pacho. How are you?
How are you today? Good?
Good, doing very good. Just so everybody knows how this works, for the first 5 minutes, we allow the audience to introduce themselves. I usually call on people, and then close to 4 or 5 minutes after the top of the hour, I introduce Paula. And Paula, I think you'll have a 15-minute presentation. Does that sound about right? And then I'll have a few questions. And then the goal is at the 30-minute mark, we switch over to questions from the audience. Before we get started, do you have any questions for me?
no, sounds good.
Okay, great.
Yeah. No.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to go ahead and call on people to introduce themselves. Pacho, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
And I'm here at the farmhouse. It connects me not that good. So I'm going to put the camera for a bit, then I'll turn it off because maybe signal comes on and off. So I'm Pacho. Nice to meet you, everybody. Nice to catch up. I am the president of Gaia Amazonas. And I imagine you've heard a little bit about Gaia Amazonas already. Great to be in touch with you. And well, hopefully that with today's meeting, we can get the final details up and running. We have a board meeting now in Friday with the rest of the North Amazon Alliance. So it's great to have everybody on board. I won't take too much of your time. Thanks.
Okay, but Pacho, just so you know, this is the weekly call of the AIC podcast. Is that?
Oh.
Are you in the right place? It's possible you showed up at the wrong meeting.
All right, let me see if I am in the right place. Wait 1 second. Am I with Andy Gibson's team?
No, I think you clicked on the wrong calendar link.
Oh, okay. So then let me just send the WhatsApp, and then did we have a podcast today? I was not aware. It seemed that I jumped on. It seems you're very lucky that I jumped in the right meeting at the right time without knowing. So
this is
where we are.
This is a presentation of the Rainforest Alliance to the network of the Amazon Investor Coalition. So the North Amazon Alliance is certainly welcome to listen in, but you guys aren't the featured presenter today, just so you know. I'm going to go ahead and call on others.
Okay. Yes, please. What this out? Let me give me 1 minute. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
The things with
okay. Nicholas Mendonça, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I am Nicholas, based in Bogota, Colombia. I work in Rainforest Alliance in Sustainable Landscapes and Communities. We are implementing very exciting projects in the Colombian Amazon region, the Cocoa for Life and Forest Allies projects. Thank you.
Great. We'll be hearing more about your program.
Okay.
Hey, Marion Adeney, would you like to introduce yourself? If you're there, no worries if not. Lena, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lena, calling in from New York, out on the beach. And I am a deep lover of the wisdom of the rainforest and how we can protect and serve and uplift the mission of First Nations people and, you know, restoring the sacredness of the rainforest and the temples of nature is kind of why I'm here. So
great. Thanks so much for joining us. Maciej Kowalski, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Maciej. I come from financial and private equity background, but woke up and started to build a new next generation financial system. It's inspired by nature, but basically looks at finding ways to connect profit and sustainability.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. Santiago, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry. Hi, my name is Santiago. I'm from the Andean Alliance for Sustainable Development, and we work within the Amazonian basin. We have a coffee project in Peru. So nice to meet you all, and of course, love the guests and everyone.
Okay, great. That puts us at just about 5 minutes after the top of the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and start the regularly scheduled programming, and I'm going to go ahead and paste in a lot of the links about Paula and the Rainforest Alliance and references. So hold on one second. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 93rd call of the Amazon Investor Coalition. This is a weekly call and podcast series dedicated to advancing forest-friendly economic development, the rule of law across the Amazon region in South America. This week, we are featuring the work of the Rainforest Alliance, one of the oldest organizations bringing together the global capital markets and industry in service of sustainability. And this week, we are hearing from Paula Den Hertog, who is responsible for corporate partnerships. Paula, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can move into the presentation. But we'd love to know what you did before RA and your role now.
Was there a life before RA? Thank you very much for having me today and for giving us the opportunity to present ourselves. I'm Paula Den Hertog. I grew up in Venezuela, but I'm Dutch, and I live in the Netherlands. I've been working for the Rainforest Alliance for over 7 years now. Before that, I did a PhD in evolutionary ecology, and I've been working at the intersection of natural resources and how we use them for a while. So I worked in fisheries, biotechnology, and palm at the Rainforest Alliance recently, and now I'm in charge of corporate partnerships, which includes our forests work as well, which is really exciting. I'll tell you a little more about it.
Great. Feel free to go ahead and give the presentation. I think the screen should be free for sharing.
Yep, let me just do that. Can you see my screen? Let me put it in presentation mode. Yeah, great. Once again, thank you very much. We're very excited to be able to share who we are and some of our work with you today. I'll go into some parts of our work a little bit more high level, and I'll go into more detail in some other areas, but feel free to ask questions, or we can link later for more detailed conversations. So the Rainforest Alliance, our vision is a world in which people and nature thrive in harmony, and that sounds amazing, but it's, as you probably all know, it's harder to achieve. So the way we do that is by using social and market forces that Joan already alluded to in the introduction, to protect nature and improve the lives of farmers and forest communities. So at the heart of our intervention, in the middle of this schematic here, are farmers and forest communities. We work with those directly. As you can see from the bottom, Rainforest Alliance, we have interventions and resources that go directly into landscapes and supporting farmers and forest communities. But we also have more supply chain focused interventions, which you see a little bit more on the left here, which is our certification program. And there we support farmers to get certified, we support companies to get certified, and then a supply chain of certified goods is created, which in turn creates revenue and resources back to the farmers to be able to sustain their sustainable practices. And this is also stimulated by consumer demand, and then that stimulates corporate and brand demand, and that's how farmers and forest communities are then supported, and then their lives are improved and nature is protected. But we also do this through supporting and influencing civil society and donors and governments, which then create the enabling environment for landscapes to become more sustainable, or for farmers to become more sustainable, and for us to be able to push that sustainability agenda. So there's various ways. So we do supply chain oriented interventions, which are mostly through our sustainability projects, but then we also do direct work in landscapes and communities. And then there's also the influencing, the advocacy, the ensuring that we get resources to the right place at the right time. Our alliance is about changing the way the world produces, sources, and consumes. Our key priority areas are or sectors are cocoa, coffee, tea, bananas, forest products, and palm oil. And we work in some of those with various interventions. For some of them, we have our certification program. For some, we work more on traceability or supply chain mapping. And for some, we work directly, for example, with forest communities. We're a global movement. We have 4 million farmers and workers on the certified farms that are certified with Rainforest Alliance. We have 5,000 company partners, 1.7 million social media followers, over 140,000 newsletter subscribers. We have both individual donors, over 10,000 of them, and we also have institutional donors, almost 50. And we also have coalitions that we're part of and platforms that we are in, and those are over 50 as well. We also advocate alongside and work together with NGOs and CSOs, both globally, but also locally in the areas where we have presence on the ground. So as part of our global interventions, we have that sustainability program that we're very well known for, but we also have, for example, Landscale, which is more of a landscape tool or framework that we use to promote landscape sustainability. So Landscale is a way to measure performance of a landscape, and that measuring of that performance allows us to then see what the landscape needs are and to continue pushing for those improvements on that performance in the landscape. So it's a very practical and robust system to assess, but also to be able to communicate how the landscape is performing in terms of sustainability. So it allows us to identify risks and opportunities in the landscape that can inform decision making to be able to drive positive impact. It also convenes stakeholders, diverse stakeholders across the landscape that can then identify shared goals, catalyze cross-sectoral action in a landscape, and they use a common language to do that. So with that data and with that robust framework of measuring the performance, it allows to have that common language for setting goals and trying to achieve those together. It also allows for connecting to incentives, because policy, market, and financial mechanisms often require that hard and robust data to understand what's happening, and also credible insights on progress made. So that, along with our certification program, is kind of like some of the global tools and frameworks that we have to advance sustainability at different levels. And one intervention I wanted to share a little bit in more detail with you today is our Forest Allies intervention. Forest Allies is focused on restoring, managing, and protecting forests, preserving the biodiversity within those forests, and reducing the carbon footprint caused by deforestation. The fundamental thing about Forest Allies is that forest communities are front and center of this intervention, and they play an essential role in being able to manage those forests sustainably, because then we empower them to do so, but also we empower them further because they're actually already know quite well. But we also support them in setting up businesses and in making a good sustainable living from that forest, and that helps maintain this sustainability of those forests and that the integrity over time. So Forest Allies was formed in 2020. It's a data-driven initiative, so we make sure that we have a monitoring evaluation framework. We measure the progress across those key indicators, which I will discuss in a little bit. And it's a method that has proven results. So we've applied it already in the Maya Biosphere Reserve, for example, in Guatemala, where we've been for over 30 years. And we've seen that deforestation rates using this model have reduced to close to zero, and they have been near zero for a long time. So we've taken that model of that community forestry and tweaked it a little bit to make it scalable and to be able to apply it across the globe in other areas. Another interesting thing about Forest Allies is that it's a community of practice. So companies are members of Forest Allies, thereby investing into the project portfolio of Forest Allies. And in the community of practice, they have the opportunity to directly interact with some of the communities and to really address key challenges that they're facing, or find innovative ways to do things. So the proven intervention method goes across 4 pillars, and those are at the same time the 4 pillars that we measure impact across. So these are governance and social organization, tenure and landscape planning, forest management, and enterprise development. And all of them are key, and they're 4 pillars of the integrated community forest management pathway. So the governance and organization means that multi-stakeholder institutional arrangements are made, forest governance mechanisms are in place, there's participation, there's accountability. Tenure and landscape planning is about rights to the land, access to the land, landscape planning, land use planning, and also development plans for the landscape. The forest management piece is about having a good inventory of the forest resources, having good planning to manage the forest resources, and have those interventions to conserve the forest, and at the same time assess that impact. And a key pillar is the enterprise development. So really supporting the communities to be able to market and have access to those markets of some of the products from the forest. So it can be timber, but also non-timber forest products that are sustainably harvested. And we support them in doing that market analysis, finding that those partners, doing the business planning, and also make sure that they have a diversified income to make sure they are resilient to any changes in those supply chains. And across all of this, we have advocacy, participatory methods, social inclusion, including gender and youth, and monitoring, evaluation, and learning, which I already mentioned. We have a tool that we've done baseline assessments across the projects, and then now we can start tracking their progress against these measures. And obviously, the enabling environment and supporting this is access to markets, access to alliances, and access to finance to make sure that this integrated model works. Trying to change there we go. So currently the project portfolio has 6 projects in critical landscapes across the globe, and they contribute to outcomes in over 330,000 hectares and 7,400 livelihoods. So we have, we're testing productive restoration in Guatemala, for example. In Colombia, we have in the Chiribiquete National Park buffer zone, we're working on restoration and also setting up livelihoods or enterprises. In Peru, we have the Indigenous Economies Project, which I'll go into a little later. In Cameroon, we're supporting communities to market non-timber forests products. And in Indonesia, we have 2 projects, one that focuses on smallholder timber harvesting, and one that focuses more on rubber, which is the Indonesia Archipelago project. So just to zoom in more specifically on one of the projects, and also very relevant for the conversation today because it's in Peru and it's in the Peruvian Amazon. There in Peru, native communities have legal autonomy of 14 of the 70 million hectares of tropical forest land. And with funding from Forest Allies, we've started to work with 11 native communities in the province of Lamas in the San Martin region. And the objective is to have them support them with establishing forest-based enterprises to be able to harvest and sell sustainable forest products, and this at the same time enabling them to protect and restore the natural ecosystem. Pictures are always help. So this is the area where you see the Cordillera Escalera with a forested kind of mountains and hilly landscape. And what we're doing is strengthening the producer capacities to implement sustainable forest management, articulating the market and sources of finance for them. So support them to understand what the market requirements are, what responsible management is, and how these products can be, timber and non-timber products can be harvested from the forest. And we're also supporting them in restoring the landscape to help them strengthen the resilience in facing deforestation and degradation threats, and helping them take the full landscape into consideration as a production area and a diverse production area. So this is a schematic representation of the landscape. And here it's nice to see that all our interventions come together, as it were. So the Cordillera Escalera is the mountainous bit with the trees in the middle. That's where we have our interventions with the indigenous communities to support the forest. But at the same time, land scale has been applied here to pilot measurement of how the landscape is doing in terms of sustainability. There's multi-stakeholder agreements in place. There's private businesses that are engaged, and we're working on certification for coffee and cocoa in the landscape at the same time. So ultimately, it all kind of comes together here, and we're fostering resilient communities, improving farmer livelihoods, and facilitating the sustainable management of the landscape. And now I'd like to pivot a little bit to the Colombian Amazon, which is where we have our Cocoa for Life program. If my colleague Nicolas can answer specific questions on that, and he works in that area. So in Colombia, we see that deforestation is still high, and in the three districts or departments here, as shown with a yellow circle, which are Caquetá, Guaviare, and Putumayo, the deforestation rates are over 44%. So what we've done here is that we're developing a resilient deforestation-free cocoa business model to support the livelihoods of cocoa farmers, which is already good in itself. But the interesting key thing here is that this is an area where before there was coca plantation. So these farmers were, and it was a very insecure area because of the drug trading. And the Cacao for Life program is helping these farmers and their families come back into a social, more normalized and safe and peaceful social system in which they can make a good living and a good livelihood off of a good crop like cocoa, helping them transition back into a safe and more normalized social system. So it's protecting the forests and improving the livelihoods of these families in the Colombian Amazon region. It's also promoting the collaboration between those three departments, which wasn't the case before this, and fostering collaboration across farmers in those departments so they can become a bigger group and a bigger cooperative to market their products in a better way. Yeah, so this is some more information on that project. So there's a monitoring, reporting, and verification system. We're designing a deforestation-free business model. There's traceability in the cocoa value chain, which is obviously very important on the market side of the supply chain. And we're improving the skills and providing the tools to the farmers and cooperatives in that area to really be able to make a good living whilst protecting the forests where they adjacent to them and where they live on. That was it for me for now. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. So we'll have a few questions from me, and then we'll open up to the larger community. First question I have is, what a sophisticated program. What would it take to bring forest allies to a new country such as Brazil?
The quick answer is money. So yeah, so we're ready. We've had discussions with companies and others, and there's obviously a big footprint in Brazil, right, in terms of deforestation. So it's definitely a country that we've had on our radar, and I think we're building kind of the capacity there in our teams, and we have good partnerships locally, which we could leverage to bring forest allies to Brazil. But indeed, we'd need new members or some sort of help with those investments to get that up and running. Indeed. Yeah.
Okay, I've got one question about the Cocoa for Life program. I am familiar with some cocoa agroforestry in the Amazon region, and the fungus witch's broom being a big problem. I'm wondering if you guys have found a variety of cocoa that is able to overcome it, or you have some other way to counteract the problem?
I'd like to pass that one to Nicolas if he can answer, because he probably knows more.
Yes. Well, we don't do the research here in this project. So in order to find the best genetic materials to fight against the witch's broom, we work together with Fede Cacao, which is the National Federation of Cocoa Growers. They do the research, and they have different clones and varieties with different levels of resistance to witch's broom. However, the worst problem here is not that one, is the other one called Monilia, which is another fungus which is really having an economic impact in the cocoa plantations throughout the country. So that is the way to approach that challenge, is with integrated MIP. integrated pest management system. So we work with the agricultural practices, not only with the genetic resistance, but also with picking up the parts of the plant that are affected by the disease. So that's the best way to control.
Great. I have a question about the seal, the frog, they say. I remember your page on the website says, find the frog. How does a new company become certified? I realize that you can make an hour presentation on just that. So just briefly.
I suppose you mean a supply chain company or
Yeah. How does the supply chain of new company X get certified as RA compliant?
So actually, they would get in touch with a certification body that's accredited to audit or against our standard, and they or at the same time get in touch with us. We could provide them all kinds of materials of like what is the things that we will be checking on, what are the important things you need to make sure you have in place to pass the requirements of the audit. And then basically they need to make sure they have their processes in place, all the requirements from the standard, and then an auditor comes and that visit is planned, and then they make sure that everything's in place, they do the checks, and then if they don't have any what we call non-conformities, which means that they don't have any issues in which they don't adhere to the standard, then the auditor passes them and requests a license, I think, in our systems to be certified. I think there's a risk assessment previous as well to see how risky a company is depending on what their processes are, what their products are, etc.
I realize it's a very complex process, probably. I'm just wondering if you have any estimation of costs. Sometimes cost for certification is an obstacle for some small producers, especially.
Yeah, for small producers, that can indeed be a challenge. I wouldn't know exact numbers at this point because it's very dependent on where you are in the supply chain, where you are geographically, how many auditors there are, etc. So that's a little hard to estimate.
I just realized we're still on full screen. If you could pull it off, people will be able to see us speaking.
Sorry.
It's okay. So another question from me. If I'm a small producer in Peru that is participating in the Forest Allies program, can you walk us through a little bit more concretely what support you're able to provide with market intelligence and access?
Yeah, so usually it's communities that we work with, and then they have access rights to the land. We actually have colleagues both in kind of more markets countries like the US, but also on the ground in the countries where in Peru, for example, which would actually help them do an inventory of like, these are the products, this is what you can market, these are the markets where it would go into, these are prices. So we actually very specifically with technical capacity support them on making a business plan, on understanding what the opportunities are, and actually we also help them with getting potential corporate partners. So if they have honey, we help them find a tea or another brand that's interested in, or food company that's interested in using the honey as an ingredient. Or with wood, we support them with some of the brands that might be interested in a specific type of wood for a specific purpose. So we actually very specifically have that technical capacity and apply it to help these communities.
Great. Just two more questions from me, and then we'll bring it over to the audience. I would like to ask about land scale. Super impressive program. Can you give us an idea of some of the either ministerial level or global corporate level planning that has become possible because of land scale that was not possible previously?
I would actually not know those details. I did invite my colleagues to this call. I was just scrolling through the names, but I don't see them here. So that's actually an answer that I would have, that I owe you then, and would have to get back to you on.
Okay. Do you know if anyone has been talking about using it to create ecosystem bonds or ecosystem service bonds or anything like that?
I'm not sure, not sure. no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. And the last question I had related to land scale is, are governments participating, or is it mostly just a private sector effort?
No, I think from my understanding that those multi-stakeholder agreements and those established kind of multi-stakeholder bodies can include government representatives, like at whatever level is relevant at that landscape.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm now going to hand it over to those in the audience. Luis from Moss Earth, I'd like to invite you to introduce yourself and to sort of make your request, if you're still there. I think he's not there. Okay, maybe he had to get off. Are there others who have questions for Paula or other members of the Rainforest Alliance team? Well, that was a great call. No, just kidding. Go ahead, Gustavo. Okay, Gustavo and then Maciej.
Hi, Paula. Congratulations on your work. Rainforest Alliance is very inspiring for many of us. It's great to see all the impact you are bringing on the ground, and also in the connections with the market. I'd like to know, like, have more like your opinion on some things, like on a little of a political perspective, as we are going to have elections in Brazil. How do you see like Brazil positioning, like in comparison with the other Latin American countries? I see Rainforest Alliance is much more present in the Spanish than in the Portuguese or Lusófonos parts of America. Could you give us a glimpse of your perspective on what's the role of Brazil and versus or in partnership with the other Latin American countries?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are present in Brazil, actually. So we do have an office there, and we do have a staff, and we're actually looking to expand that a little bit. So it's definitely a country that we find important, especially from a rainforest protection perspective, of course, which is obvious. I think it's more, I don't think it has necessarily been a conscious decision to not engage in Brazil. I think it's more a historical way that the Rainforest Alliance has grown, with a lot of the focus of the work in Central America, and then it expanded more into Spanish-speaking Latin America, if you will, and also with the merger with UTS. I think those kind of countries in which both organizations had good footing, it remained, and Brazil is definitely one of them. And I think, as I said, for Forest Allies, it's key to look into what we can do in Brazil. And for a certification program, Brazil is also very important in some of those key products that we certify in supply chain. So I think it's just a matter of time, and that will be there. And yeah, I hope to be able to, that we can proceed with that impactful work as well in Brazil. And thank you very much for your compliments on that.
Great. Next up, Maciej.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you use any technology kind of to facilitate your business, especially to facilitate the connecting throughout the supply chain, you know, between farmers and customers and your, you know, your okay.
Good question. Yeah, no, definitely. For our certification program, it's really important, and also part of our assurance system to make sure that ultimately the product, especially for certified products, the certified products that are carrying the seal in the marketplace, that we actually know that they came from certified producers. So yeah, we do have an intricate traceability system where everybody has to register, and where volumes are given to producers, and those volumes are passed along in the supply chain. So that's for certification. And then for some of the crops outside of certification, we also provide services in supply chain mapping and helping companies understand where their non-certified supply comes from to help them improve their practices and address risks in those supply chains. Palm is an example of that. And we also, for example, for palm, provide the traceability platform for RSPO, the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil. So in that sense, the traceability systems and that technology side of it is very core to the work that we do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of, let's say, community building and communication, have you considered, you know, creating some sort of marketplaces? Have you thought about this area where you could kind of like automate a bit, you know, the relationships?
Yeah, that's a good a question. So we've used it indeed. So for example, it's an example, but for example, for RSPO, where they have the credit, I don't know if you're familiar with RSPO, they have the credit trading mechanism. It's a functionality that allows producers to directly sell credits to end buyers in the supply chain. So we do have that, and sometimes we think of how we could use that maybe in other ways. We are brokering in different projects, kind of how companies can invest into landscapes or how companies can invest into projects. But that's a good question. I don't think for the community work, we've actually, we don't have a way to broker kind of their products to find buyers. So that's an interesting perspective to take with me. Yeah.
And maybe last question, do you see like a common synchronizing factor that, you know, it's like a common synchronizing factor between, you know, all of your stakeholders? Do you see something that is like, you know, common denominator, if you like, between all of your stakeholders? Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think for the corporate side, for sure, it's really that shift that we're seeing, right, to having to meet targets on sustainability, no deforestation, et cetera. I think for the farms stakeholders, it's indeed also a question of having a good livelihood and be able to sustain that over time. I think, and as that goes kind of hand in hand with some of that, the environmental components, I think that's kind of the common denominator. But across all of them, I think would be hard.
Certification.
I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Hassan.
Hi. Thank you. And thanks for the presentation. And actually, the part of my question was around technology. So I'm glad it was pretty much half of it was answered. But the other part also had to do with specific to, you mentioned how you provide, is it market data, market intelligence, right? And I was just wondering, like, so where are you getting that from? How are you getting that? Are you, and how are you, then in what way are you, like, is there, again, you're providing it through a tech platform? I just wondering just a little more about that so I can understand. And is there any, and what analytics, or how do you do that analysis?
Yeah. So I think what I was mentioning was more for the communities to help them market the products they have. So that's more of market scans and like locally, like what's the potential to sell. It's just basically research done on the ground with like trying to understand who buyers could be, what bringing potential buyers in, that kind of thing. I think organization-wide, we do have platforms where we get our market data from, but a key thing actually for us is really to have our own impact data, actually being able to translate that to our market partners. That's like a really core element of what we do, so that certified companies can say, okay, so I'm certified with you, but what's the actual impact that we're achieving together by this certification program? And that's, I think, the key where I'm really focusing our energy on, and our platforms are geared more and more to be able to provide that very specific data on specific supply chains. So that's kind of the inverse of what you were asking, I think, but that's more where we are focusing at the moment.
Just one, it's more of like a comment. I'd love to just say that I think you should connect offline, because I work with an AI tech company, and I'd love to see how, if we can help you to in any way, yeah, just that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, always welcome. Happy to. Yeah.
Paula, you mentioned one thing earlier that really caught my attention, and that is the merger between UTS and the Rainforest Alliance. This is something that's super, super rare in the nonprofit universe, super common in the corporate universe. Could you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. So the ultimate, so what we were seeing, and I think everyone was seeing, right, is that there's a lot of labels out there, a lot of sustainability standards, et cetera. And at some point, some farms were being certified against different ones to be able to access different markets. And ultimately, what we were asking ourselves is that really what we're, what we're trying to achieve? And we figured the less, if all these standards are doing very similar things, how nice would it be if we can join two of them with a pretty large reach, and then actually be able to scale that impact and have bigger impact together, rather than be trying to get pieces of the market away from each other or whatever, where we're actually trying to achieve the same thing. So that's where that came from. And Rainforest Alliance and UTS were actually quite complementary organizations. So it was a very nice coming together of these complementary qualities that we now see within the new unified organization. So I think, yeah, that worked out quite well.
Great. I've got a long list of questions, but I don't want to use up all the oxygen in the room. So do others have questions? So another question I have is the arrival of the task force on nature-related financial disclosures and sort of the equivalent task force on biodiversity. There's a more and more corporate demand for nature-based solutions. You guys are one of the few organizations with a real global footprint with advice. Could you tell us a little bit about how you guys institutionally get swept up in that planning process?
Yeah, so we talk to a lot of companies on nature-based solutions. What we do see is companies are a lot of times struggling with like all the frameworks they have to adhere to and all the things they need to report. And then ultimately, they, there's solutions within their supply chain, but then there's also solutions outside supply chains. Forest Allies, for example, is one that's outside supply chains, and then they sometimes wonder, well, should I be investing outside of my supply chain? What is that bringing me? So I think there's a big struggle going on there. I think ourselves, we are gearing ourselves up to be able to support companies more widely in these solutions. We're also looking at carbon, for example, to include that in some of our projects, and to have those measures and to make it more appealing and interesting and easy for companies to be able to join some of these projects. Yeah, I think Amy is on the call. I'm not sure if she has more to say on this piece. Putting you on the spot, Amy.
I actually was answering a question from previous in the notes, so sorry. But I think that, no, I mean, our global programs also actually interact and feed into a lot of the different global processes. For example, I know our team on the Accountability Framework Initiative has been really feeding into the European Union new draft language that for the new requirements that will be coming out. So I think we enter into different spaces at different teams also at different levels. Yeah, so it's sometimes hard to track who's talking to who about what. But I also wanted to follow up on a question about creating a marketplace, because we are in discussion with the donor now about funding that we're getting close to receive for creating a marketplace for companies in the Amazon. And we think, Joan, I don't know if you remember Adriana mentioning that, it's probably a couple years out because there's still a lot of capacity building that needs to be done with the companies before we can even bring them, kind of connect them with buyers. But that is something that we definitely are hoping to receive funding for and invest in the next year.
There are some people on this call who are involved in developing supply chains in the Amazon region. I'm wondering if any of you guys would like to introduce yourselves. There may be an opportunity for global and local to meet.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Santiago. As I talked before, we work with a coffee project in Peru. And I wanted to ask a little bit more in depth about this idea of the carbon market, you know, as another income, like an extra income for farmers, and what's the viability that you have to study, and if it's good, and if it's actually something that provides an important income for farmers in terms of their livelihood. And but also, yeah, I wanted to say that these types of like marketplaces and everything shorten the supply chain, which in the case of coffee, it's also a very complicated and sometimes very long supply chain. So I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah, I think for carbon, actually, we're exploring that at the moment, like what that could look like, and what role we could play in that space as well. Like, what does our certification program bring in terms of benefits in carbon emission reductions, etc. And also the same for our forest allies and some of those interventions. So from there, we can then start seeing like, okay, can we measure these changes, and then what can we do? Like, is this robust enough to be able to look at credits or other ways of marketing this? So I think for sure there's an opportunity there. I don't think we're there yet in terms of researching what if that's viable or not.
Oh, go ahead, Machi.
Yeah, so I can connect you with some, let's say, blockchain related technologies that already figure out the way to use data to like build carbon, credit kind of product. So, I don't know how far you are, so, it's really hard to understand, through this like short call, but I send you a LinkedIn invite so we can connect that way. I can connect you with a couple of company in my kind of like perimeter that probably can help you with that. And yeah, so yeah,
great.
I think it's a lot. That's why I ask about synchronization and those parameters that synchronize, because there is a lot of like small activities here and there, and there is a really lack of synchronization. So I'm kind of like, in my thinking, trying to find those common denominators somehow to connect
that makes
people.
Sense. Yeah. Thanks. No, that would be great. Thank you.
One of the global corporate philanthropies that I have been talking to has been looking for ways to help band smaller producers together so that they can qualify for these large purchase contracts that the Fortune 500 companies have and things like that. I'm wondering if you have seen that happening in the supply chain space. If a smallholder farmer doesn't have enough money to hire an auditing company, can they start a cooperative and join up with others in order to go through that auditing process so that they get verified? Have you seen that happening?
Yeah, actually, we usually for smallholders, we actually advise it that they have a cooperative, because then it helps them have that kind of internal management system, have that internal checks to make sure that they're all there's a manager supporting them, and make sure that everybody can adhere to the standard, etc. Like really doing that at an individual level is indeed very tough. Also cost-wise, but also a cooperative helps them be able to market their products better, have a stronger negotiation position, all these kind of things. So I think from various points of view, that's we definitely stimulate that and make that. It's usually cooperatives that are the certification unit, so to speak. Yeah.
I have another Brazil-related question. IMA Flora has been an active supply chain certifier. I'm wondering if the presence in a large company like Brazil of an existing supply chain certifier may be part of the reason why you guys have less market penetration to date.
Not sure. I'm not that well versed into the supply chain, but as to my understanding, I think they're actually good, a good organization that we work with. So I'm not sure how that relationship is, but I think we have some good relationships in Brazil, and my understanding is that IMA Flora is one of them. But I'd have to get back to the colleagues on that.
Great. I see some ecotourism expertise on the line. Could you tell us a little bit about your ecotourism work? That would be for RA, yeah.
Rainforest Alliance. I think as we say, pre-merger Rainforest Alliance historically did ecotourism work. I think that's now been, is that still online? Oh, interesting. Not clear on where that is. I thought that was one of our partners that was proceeding with that, Preferred by Nature, which used to be NetCon.
Okay, that may be the case.
Yeah.
Do others have questions? I have a couple more sort of industry related stuff, but I'm just wondering if some people on the call who would like to introduce themselves. So one thing that we have seen an opportunity for, okay, go ahead, Art.
Hello, Jonah. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think this is very instructive, and I want to introduce myself. My name is Art Krebs. I've been attending as many sessions as I can, and sometimes I'm not able to, but I think that in this case, it kind of is closer to what we are focusing on. I did hear a lot about the Amazon and projects in Peru. We're currently doing some development on ecotourism and also in conservation and reforestation in the Amazon, in this areas around Peru. So it'd be great to collaborate in any way that we can. I'm not certain if we need to get certified because we're not necessarily producers, but more of developers trying to create that collaboration with different entities to the same goal. But I'll be more than happy to contact you separately and talk a little further. I appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Always open to that. And I can ultimately link you to our colleagues in Peru, which might make more sense for you. But yeah, more than happy to.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
One question I have, we have seen an opportunity to accelerate the process by which some of the Amazonian superfoods come to market. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, few people outside of the Amazon region were familiar with acai. Now it's $1 billion industry. That's probably going to happen with a lot of other superfoods from the region. I'm wondering if you guys either partner with or are involved in the process of R&D about individual rainforest products and helping them, be import-export compliant with a country. Where do you guys come up in that process of sort of product development?
Yeah, we're happy to partner actually. So we don't do that ourselves, but like if there's a market, usually the market actors know quite well like how that process works. So if they're looking for an ingredient for their products that's specific from the rainforest or close to it, they will know, they will have R&D processes in place, either their own R&D facilities or external partners that can do like the checking on quality and properties, et cetera. And we're happy to partner and provide support from the country specific and like some of the rules that are associated with the products in country, and then how they can be exported and how they can go through that, samples sent over, etc. So we play more a supporting role there, but we're happy to partner with organizations that do that, especially what comes to mind for me immediately is for some of these communities that could be a very good source of income, right? So but these are long trajectories but we're there for a long time, so we're happy to support them.
I have another question related to brand development. Do you believe that the Rainforest Alliance brand, the frog, do you think that its power is equal in its sort of B2B relationship to help large certifiers just ensure a safe supply chain, but also motivate consumers to choose, one sustainable product over another? And where does that power exist, and how do you push and pull it and grow it?
Yeah, I think in general it's more in the consumers in the consumer market, but I think B2B obviously definitely helps because it's usually the client asking for certification, and that kind of gets cascaded down the supply chain. But I think ultimately the brand or the seal is more of a consumer facing power. And we work on consumer campaigns. We also work on campaigns to put companies in the spotlight that are doing really well, or that have like our Follow the Frog campaigns, in which we highlight companies that are certified with us and and what their journey has been, and like the positive impact they're achieving. So we definitely do that on our different channels to really promote the seal, but also the good work the organization does more broadly.
Do you guys get involved in site visits for philanthropy education?
That would be a good one for Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually I've only been here 9 months, so I'm not entirely sure that we haven't had them since I've been here. And I think if we were having them, they definitely tailed off with COVID. So it might be something that we bring up again once the countries and communities where we most work are feeling safe and that they can entertain that.
Understood. Yeah, COVID was a big disruptor.
Yeah.
Have you guys been involved in organizing investors internationally? Do you know, putting together new financial products, forestry bonds or things like that?
Not that I know of, Paula. I don't know if in your experience.
I think we were exploring some actually, but I don't know where that's at, and if that's communicable or what the stage is actually.
Part of our niche as an organization is serving as this convening point and cross-platform learning for investors and donors and corporate procurement. You guys are obviously a real special long-term partner. You guys have been going at this for decades longer than many others that are active in the space. So some of these following questions sort of come from that perspective. 10,000 donors, that's a super impressive number. I'm wondering what fraction of your annual budget comes from the donors versus the individual donors versus the institutional donors? Do you know?
Yes, I think our institutional donors, well, I don't know the fraction of the budget. I can say that certification is our largest kind of revenue generator. And then following that is the institutional donors, with a very kind of pretty small portion of that from individual donors. Maybe kind of like a 3-ish to 5-ish million for our individuals versus 30 for institutions.
Okay. And are those institutions generally governments or corporations or private grant making foundations, or an equal spread?
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. Corporate philanthropy, private foundations, bilateral, multilateral donors.
Part of the story of Nexus and the Amazon Investor Coalition has been starting first of its kind conversations about philanthropy with young people from the country's top industrial families somewhere in the global south. I imagine that you guys play a similar role. You bring the narrative of commercializing rainforest opportunities to areas where it has never existed before. I'm wondering if you guys have countries where you have your best success story. In the previous country X had nothing in this space. You guys intervened. Now things are so sustainable. What might those countries be? What might some of those top success stories be?
Paula, do you have an answer to that?
Well, I have a Guatemala Biosphere Reserve in Guatemala, so that's a very important, both historically, right, from a community and people's rights point of view, as from a natural forest point of view. So that's definitely one where we've been for a long time. So deforestation rates are close to zero, and the communities are doing very well. It's taught us a few things. It takes a long time. You need to stick around for a long time and really have that holistic approach to that forest protection, both from a environmental as from a community's perspective. So, and that's now what we're trying to scale to other places. I'm sure there are more examples, but that one's the one that comes to mind to me.
Was Guatemala the very first country that you guys started working with?
I think so. I know that UTS has its roots, for example, in Guatemala, and I think Rainforest Alliance might actually as well. So that I think those connections with Guatemala go far. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Questions from others? Really wonderful comprehensive presentation. Anyone else? Yeah, someone was.
Oh, Jonah, it was just me. I was going to say to your question about investment products, financial products. We are actually this year undergoing a new strategic plan. Our strategic plan ended last year into this year. So I think part of that process is we're looking at these different funding mechanisms and how we can expand beyond the certification and donor model too. So that's on the horizon, probably more at the end of this year that we could share about that.
Right before we get up, I just love a couple of people who are important future allies to introduce themselves. Kristen Reckberger, would you like to introduce yourself? If you're there. You're on mute.
I'm here. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Great to see you.
You just want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
I'm sorry?
Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Oh, sure. Dynamic Planet has been working for the last decade on regenerative seascapes and landscapes and how to value ecosystems on a holistic geographic scale. We mostly work in the ocean space off of highly protected areas, especially with National Geographic's pristine seas. So, you know, the ocean can regenerate miraculously if you leave it alone. So we work on tourism models inside the reserve, sustainable fisheries outside, carbon, and then we look at things that could erode that value. In the case of coastlines, it's often sewage and waste management and nutrient runoff and things like that. So I'm listening hard on your nature and commodities management and always trying to look at what land models might help also influence our sea models.
Maybe land scale can be adapted for ocean scale.
For sure.
Oh,
Well, I think we
good.
can go both ways here. Yeah, for sure.
I wonder if Marcela Bashim from TS Impacto, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sorry, John, I'm with the baby here.
Okay, no
He's
worries.
crying.
Okay, so sorry.
I'm moving rooms. Sorry. Hello, my name is Marcela. I am a Brazilian consultant. I work with social entrepreneur, and in Amazonia, I'm working with the gender and inclusion agenda, and I'm working too with Mercado Livre, developing small business to get in touch with the digital platform and sales.
Great.
Thank you for the opportunity. Sorry not to open the mic before the baby
No
was
worries.
super crying.
Okay, that brings us to the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Paula, Amy, everybody for joining us. Great conversation. I'm going to stay on after in case anyone has other questions, but I think Paula probably has to go and others. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much for having us. It was our pleasure. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.